Hello, all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Welcome to Generational Change on a
Monday night live stream.
Mm-hmm. And
special guest Lou.
Special guest Lou, as always. Say hello. Say hi. Smile. Who's a happy dog? Who's a happy girl? Yes. I know.
Yes.
I know.
Special guest Lou.
Yes. We were gonna go into our.
I have a Focus on Florida slide. I've been doing the graphics lately. I feel like I've been. And then today I made the graphic for Ruby and I are hosting for the League of Women Voters.
Talk about Ruby.
I love Ruby. Ruby and I are co-chairs of the criminal justice.
A lot of people may not.
Everybody knows who Ruby is. Everyone watching this. Okay. Ruby Green is my friend. She works the state attorney's office. She used to work for the public defender, and she co-chairs the criminal justice committee with me for the League of Women Voters. And we are doing a panel on incarceration with indignity based on how we specifically in Florida treat women inmates, women behind bars. And so we're doing a panel on that. And I did the graphic for it today. And Ruby was so impressed because I haven't done a flyer for us in a while. Mm-hmm. She did the last one. She was very impressed with my Canvas skills. She loved it. So I've been doing it. So let's put it up. Look how pretty my thing is here.
Jen is actually a really good graphic artist. Got to give her credit for that. She actually did this. I love the exposed brick. Oh,
you
that's
like
really
that?
good.
All right, really wait. We're getting to it. I know. See. All
right. No, that's it.
I'm like going blind.
Okay. No, just being able to actually follow it. But yeah, no, that's really good. I definitely like that style. I think that's much more.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm good, right?
Yeah. Now we don't need anybody else to do anything. We just need Jen to do. And thanks, Jen. We had the whole. We had it all along. We had the right person that we needed to do this.
I know, but okay. All right, and that's fine for now. You know, it's not. It would not really work in a campaign mode situation.
No, it definitely would not. Well, I don't know about that, but
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, this was my
probably we need to bring this a little bit lower.
Okay. Here's the thing: we just recently started using this new thing where the slide. You see how you don't see my computer background,
Lou's gonna go. Lou, it's not gonna matter.
She's gonna go nuts. No, just relax, Jason. All right.
Jen's definitely got to take care of. Lou's constant need for attention. But before we, the question is, do we want to dive into this first?
Or do you want to talk about what I just, I don't know. I kind of I think we need to marinate on it before we talk about it. Let's just do this. Let's do what we were planning on doing.
Okay. So I think that, actually, no, you know what? I really do want to talk about this.
Okay, but this is going to be like a rant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't you set the stage about what happened?
I don't want to, though. That's the thing. Like, I don't really want to talk about it right now. That's sort of the thing. So if you want to do it, then that's fine, but I really don't.
Okay.
It's very raw.
I think it's very important that for people to understand what institutional racism looks like, what gentrification looks like, and how people of color, especially Black people, stay circling at the bottom of the drain. And what happened today is a prime example of that. And when I hear people shout racism and sexism and misogyny when it is completely unwarranted, you need to listen to stories like this, because this is what actually affects people's lives and livelihoods and not being able to improve their living conditions. A few months ago, we started a community garden in one of the most poverty-stricken areas in this entire area. Liberia is a neighborhood in Hollywood. And we had, very fortunately, a plot of land, about 1/4 of an acre, that was devoted specifically for the purpose of building a community garden. Not only was it a community garden, it was also composting, and it was also going to be a bee colony. These are things that are going to tremendously help people in need, tremendously help them. And today it was brought to our attention that the person who bequeathed the land for us to use decided to sell it to a developer for pennies on the dollar, mind you. Why would he do that?
I don't understand. He didn't make like any money for, like, I don't understand. Why wouldn't he have at least offered it to us?
And he may be
He could
saying
have made more money.
he may be saying that that's who he sold it to. But we all know that there was a sweetheart deal that was given to him for the purpose of being able to use that land to build whatever the hell they're going to build there. But the truth of the matter is,
I think they were also doing it to stifle this project.
1,000%.
I mean, yes, he'll build something, but the fact, I don't know, it's so purposeful.
When you think
purposeful.
about how the cycle of poverty continues year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation, this is how it happens. And you would say, well, Peter, how is that possible? It's just one plot of land. You could build another plot. Because this is when people just fall into despair and they lose hope. And they get, and this is something that's very common in the Black community, believe it or not. They don't want to be helped because they're tired of broken promises. They basically want you to piss off.
They really just want to help themselves and be left alone.
Correct. And then you have these white saviors that come into the area, like this lady who had a piece of property that was plotted right behind this garden.
They're gentrifying.
And would not stop harassing the hell out of them all day, every day. And not only that, but this particular person only wanted to talk to her because she's a white woman from the suburbs. They didn't want to deal with the Black people who lived in the community, who ran the community. And they basically tried to run them out. And you know what? They probably decided to play hardball and made it even worse. Because there are rules in the streets. I lived in the streets for I was not homeless, but I lived very poor for a couple of years. And I saw what this was like. Everyone wants to come in and say that they're going to help, but in reality, they're only trying to help themselves. They're not trying to help the community. That's not what they're doing. What they're trying to do is get their hands on whatever land they can in depressed areas so they can build them up and make a profit and move on and screw whoever the hell lives there.
It's so sad. Every week, something nice has happened at that garden. Every week, somebody's come out there that lives in the community with their kids. Every single week, the kids have come out there and watered. And it's like, it's just so, it's real. I'm sad. I'm really sad. And you know, look, but the good news is that we learned a ton. We did all of this in 4 months. It cost us nothing. Everything was donated. We're going to repot as much as we're going to save as much as we can. And we'll give it to people who can use it in the meantime. And then hopefully at some point be able to start somewhere. But we learned a ton. Like now we know what we're doing. Like we would know how to do that. Like, so I won't say it was, the time was wasted, because the time was not wasted.
No.
I loved going to the garden. I'm just sad for that community because there were so many people. They would, like, when they would walk by what used to be this disgusting lot of broken glass and they would walk by to the store, you would see these people's faces light up. Like, look at that, there's a garden. And we'd say hi and we'd invite them over. And it makes me really sad. That's how I feel.
I think it is utterly disgusting.
And this was a friend. That's like, the whole thing is just, this wasn't like it was a city lot and the city screwed us. That we would expect. Which
just goes to show you how many special interests are involved in this. I have no doubt that some of the elected officials on the city commission, maybe even the county commission, maybe even our congressman.
John, the guy who bought it and gave it to Aaron for the community, sold it without even telling them and giving them the chance to buy it. And he sold it for $56,000, which they could have handled. You know, like that. It's so, and now the guy who bought it, they approached him and now he wants 100. And it's just not, this is what happens. Like, this is how people get really beaten down. Like, it's so defeatist. Oh my God. It's so, but I am going to say, the things happen for a reason. That wasn't where it was meant to be. That wasn't where a Rosewood community garden was meant to be.
Everyone can look for a reason to say that this is, we can move on and we'll have another opportunity. But the fact remains that this is what goes on everywhere. And you don't hear about it. No one talks about what real gentrification looks like, how they beat down people who do not have a pot to piss in, and they're figuring out how to get out of the cycle of poverty. And then somebody comes along and says, screw it, I got to get mine. Screw you, that ain't going to work. And then the person who just bought it once basically is trying to not to haggle. That ain't haggling.
No, it's just being, you know what it is?
That's
it's predatory.
extortion.
It's predatory.
It's extortion.
But
is
you
what
know
it
what?
is.
And I don't know if this is related to Karen next door. And really, that woman, she started, I mean, she was all happy to talk to the neighbors when she thought we were the neighbors. She talked to us. So then I showed her that who the people were in charge. I'm like, okay, it's Mona Lisa and Aaron. Her entire demeanor changed, like completely changed. This woman had no interest in knowing anything about what we were doing or about the caring about the community. In fact, she even said, I don't care about the community. I don't live here, because she lives in Sunny Isles. She lives in Sunny Isles.
We have a portion of the Miami-Dade County in our district, and it is only the coastline.
Yeah.
It is North Miami Beach,
and it's
minus North Miami Beach, but it is North Miami Beach.
Aventura, Sunny Isles, and Bal Harbor, basically.
Bay Harbor Islands and Surfside.
Yeah. So
who do you think lives there?
This lady,
people that don't have to worry about putting food on their table,
who we call Karen, has been nothing but difficult since everything we've ever done in this garden. She would come over and like everything she had sort of like a suggestion, or why don't you do this? Like she was so, I don't know,
trying to be a problem.
You know what? It just disgusts me. All right, can we move on?
And they stood up.
Let's move on, because I'm getting like really kind of like.
And they stood
up. I
up.
want to move on.
And they didn't want to take her crap anymore.
Well, I pulled her aside and tried to have a conversation with her and said, you know, you and I do not, this is not our neighborhood, and we need to be respectful of that.
And the fact that nobody decided on nobody in the city commission, or, you know, certainly nobody in the county commission. And quite frankly, you know, again, I'm not going to say that our congresswoman had anything to do with this, but I don't put anything past anybody in this area. I just don't, because they know she's involved with it.
Oh, now you're getting paranoid. Now you're getting paranoid. All right, we're moving on, because now you're getting paranoid.
I just think it's something. Can I finish, please?
Okay, but I just don't want you to sound like all like crazy protective and
people
like
need
paranoid.
to recognize that this is a very serious problem. It is. And when I hear people complain about the most mundane, pathetic things in politics, seriously, piss off. This is what real politics is, because this is real life. And this is going to affect people in a completely horrific way, in ways that people do not understand.
I mean,
now,
this is just the tip of the iceberg because of what's happening. I mean, that it's all.
And I don't know if there's anything that we could do to salvage this circumstance.
Well, right now we're gonna take a couple of days and regroup, and then decide what to do and how save plants, because a lot of things can be moved. As Vern said, nothing is really permanent except for a couple of the trees, and I guess they're going to get bulldozed anyway. So,
I'm tired of seeing this stuff. I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of it.
All right, I'm getting my security.
And we have to be taking no prisoners when it comes to this type of thing. It is the only way that the cycle of poverty is going to end. This is the only way, because people need to learn how to essentially live off the grid, no matter where they are.
Well, this is inspiring to the people in my little group here, that yes, they want to buy a chunk of land somewhere else, somewhere a little far away, and have a retreat and have a place and just sort of be left alone, and stop asking for permission for things that should be, you know, actually nothing you should have to ask for permission for.
No. And again, that is the unfortunate side of gentrification and institutional racism. And that's what this is.
It's ugly.
It's clear as day. This is not hyperbolic. This is not, you know, maybe we're you know.
We're watching it in live time.
Yeah. And
they're literally, this neighborhood is being pulled out from under them and they have nowhere else to go. It's not like they're not going to be able to afford to live in their own neighborhood.
So GenCore will evolve. We'll do what we have to do. But this is just, like I said, it's another example of how people are not able to sustain themselves in a way that they could actually actually rise and make a better life for themselves. Something as simple as figuring out how to harvest fruits and vegetables, to do composting, to have a bee colony where you can make your own honey, where you can, again, this is just little things. But when the powers that be find out that the peasants are starting to figure ways not to deal with them directly, that they're not going to the bankers, if you will, anymore, can't have that. We cannot have that. That's the one thing I tell everybody all the time. You know what unites Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN? Anytime that the working class is figuring out their game.
Well,
once that happens, all bets are off. Now we're all in this together because because it's a class war. Because that's what this is. This ain't a race war. This ain't a misogyny war. This is a class war. And we're knee deep in it. And it's only going to get worse.
Well,
so be prepared.
I now have more time to do mobile school pantry. Fridays are now seemingly going to be available.
We are going to look, and I am going to connect with as many people as I can, as many people as Jen knows, and we are going to find other places in this area that are willing to take on a community garden, because we need to do that anyway.
We just need one in that area. You know, yes. Like one in Sunrise doesn't help that. It just doesn't. I mean, that's nice for them, but that doesn't help where we like, it doesn't, one does not solve the other. So we need, I don't know what we're going to do.
No, but right. we're going to come up with something, because no one has ever, and I mean ever, really fought for the people in need in this part of the country. It's never been done.
It's so crazy.
So we're going to change it. And why not? You know, it is on us, but we are going to do it. So
can now we be done?
With that said, we are going to go into a fun part of the equation, which is, what are we going to call this? We're going to call this
Focus on Florida.
Focus on Florida.
My logo.
We're totally focusing on Florida. We're focusing.
It's my
on
logo. I'm like, I've been like really getting into the Canva thing lately.
So Florida has a lot of interesting things going on right now. But of course, the first one that we have to talk about, which just came down today, is that the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, Manny Diaz, we are friendly with Manny's ex-wife, insistent upon this idea that the Democratic Party of Florida is pulling itself out of $2 million in debt or whatever it is.
But like, I thought this had already happened. Like when I saw this story, I actually felt deja vu, like this had happened. So I don't understand how this is news. It's just now it's the Florida party versus the national party. But really, wasn't this expected? I mean, the Hillary, that well is drying up. The Clinton Foundation can't do it anymore. Step up Bloomberg. So
Bloomberg comes in
and buys the party.
And basically buys the party. Yeah. But that's not the only thing. The majority of these donors are Republican and never Trumpers. That's who they are. And if that's not enough, the second biggest donor, Mike Fernandez, after Michael Bloomberg, would you care to guess what that guy does for a living?
Let's put that up here.
Mike Fernandez is a healthcare corporate executive, and he gave over $100,000 to the Democratic Party. So you know what that means. There will be no discussion whatsoever of Medicaid expansion, or definitely not Medicare for all. So when we talk about getting ourselves out of debt and competing to actually be a viable party, one of the things that was brought to my attention today is that the Democratic Party of Florida has zero ground game when it comes to small dollar donations. Zero. So anyone who thinks that Ron DeSantis is not going to be the governor in 2 years doesn't know anything about politics.
In fact, they should be kind of too scared that he might be our president in 4.
Yeah.
And that is something we should all be scared about.
And what's even worse is you had one person in particular who I found to be sort of the embodiment of what is wrong with the party. This person does not like progressives, but has no problem welcoming Republicans into the party. until this mindset changes, and this is, again, the problem that moderates and centrists have with progressives. The biggest difference, it's not a question. There's not this grand conspiracy about what do progressives want, what do moderates want. Most of them want the exact same thing, with one significant difference. Progressives want nothing to do with corporate special interest money. That is the difference. And moderates are okay with it. Well, we have to compete against the GOP. If you actually had a ground game and people were donating small dollar donations, that wouldn't be a problem. Look what just happened out in Nevada. I am always going to reference Nevada from now on. The progressives took over, and what did the moderates do? They took all the money. Took it all.
You know what, though? Good. Let them have their corporate money. That's exactly the point. Let them take their money. And let's respond to that, because we do have somebody in mind.
We certainly do.
We most certainly have somebody in mind.
We would really love to see Anna Escamani, Florida State House Representative, District 38, I want to say. She's in
somewhere
Orlando.
In the middle.
She's in Orlando.
She's somewhere
That's
in the
what you need to know. And she's in one of the few non-gerrymandered districts, so she actually has to earn her seat.
She would be great.
She absolutely
would be great.
Yeah, she would. And she's got a lot of great ideas. Listen, they're going to...
You know what? Win or lose, she'd be a great candidate.
I just think that she should run because, in my humble opinion, Desantis is not going to lose.
We're going to see.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think a lot can happen. A lot can happen. And I think it's really going to come down to whether his affiliation...
Thank you, Sammy.
Whether his affiliation with Trump is good or bad at the time,
and whether
that is relevant. And it has to be at the election time. It doesn't matter what it is right now. So that's the thing. And I think that it's very tenuous, and he very well could go down with Trump, and who knows what's going on.
I think Declan has revealed himself, because that is your line, Declan.
Exactly. We know it's you now. You've actually ruined it. I thought it was our friend Sam.
Yeah, too bad. Oh, okay. Well.
All right.
But I do, but that is great to know, Sammy. And of course, you know, we think very highly of Anna.
Yes,
we really
do.
And if you haven't seen our podcast with Anna Escamani, highly recommend you check it out. So with that said, the party is only going to grow if the progressive chapters grow. Now, I'm now on the board of the DPCF, the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. So we're going to build membership there, and we're going to help people become members. I think it's $25 for the year. So we're going to do what we have to do in order to build the bench, because that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to, and again, maybe it doesn't happen this upcoming election cycle, but sustainability over time is how change will happen. Elijah Manley, who is running for the state house, he is now the president. We're going to have him come on the podcast very soon. And we're going to talk about the game plan. I always forget his district.
Is he 94 or something?
Yes, that is 94.
Okay. I think so.
So in addition to that, one of the reasons, and this is a good segue in our focus on Florida, why is it? What would be the reason that Ron DeSantis would ultimately lose? Well, pretty simple. DeSantis is going to have to be involved in some type of a scandal. And right now,
there's nothing big enough yet. That's the truth.
Not enough.
Exactly.
However, there are a couple of things that must be taken into consideration. We have a very high
threshold nowadays. Like, it's got to be juicy good. Because if it's just like, you know, a couple of hookers in the back of a car and, you know, maybe like, you know, a dead body, no one's going to care.
I don't know if that is necessarily true, although there is some truth
I mean,
to that.
we need a heavy, when you say scandal, it needs to be, you know, it needs to be good.
No, and the truth
smoking gun.
No, and the truth of the matter is, you know, it's kind of like with Cuomo. And, you know, we've had Lindsey Boylan on the show, who was the first person to really break the news on Cuomo and his, you know, misdealings.
Lindsey is running for Manhattan Borough president.
So she brought a lot of attention to it. But the truth of the matter is, he should be out of office because he is directly responsible for the deaths in the nursing homes.
Yes,
but because it's not juicy enough, talking about a sex scandal is much more juicy.
And I think he's probably a pig.
Oh, I have no doubt that he is.
Right. Like, I mean, these are legitimate things, but it should have been enough that he's responsible for the death of a bunch of nursing home people knowingly doing that. And
so like, down here in Florida, Ron DeSantis was involved in having, was it the FBI, literally break into the home of a lady, Rebecca Jones, who was working in his administration in direct conjunction with the CDC. and was hiding the numbers, of how many COVID cases we actually had.
She was coming forward with, she was calling him out on it. And so they raided her house and held her children at gunpoint.
Correct. And guys, if you're watching, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you're watching. We need you on YouTube.
We've gotten
yes,
everything.
we're evolving.
Really, I know.
We're evolving.
Yeah.
We're making moves. And so now, another scandal. Florida is in the bottom 10 states for the vaccine rollout. And if that's not enough, Desantis has another scandal on his hands where he's basically selling the vaccine. And it's not to say, and let's be fair, this is actually not so much a DeSantis scandal as this is a big pharma scandal. They are selling, they're selling the vaccine to the highest bidder. So when everyone says, how is it that the Villages and Miami Beach and all these places are getting the vaccine before everybody else? Because they're paying for it, because big pharma is apparently Pfizer. Pfizer at the federal level is set to make $4 billion in profit off the vaccine, even though it was completely paid for by our tax dollars. Ain't that racket great? And you wonder why we need Medicare for all in the United States. I'm just saying.
Yay, Florida.
But we do have a very juicy GOP scandal for you.
Which, oh, yes.
Jose Javier Rodriguez.
Say that 3 times fast.
JJR.
It's cheating.
Makes it easier.
Jose Javier Rodriguez.
A very solid progressive in the state Senate. And he, unfortunately, is not there anymore because the Florida GOP decided to pull a really, really perfecto scandal out of their arsenal. And they've got plenty. But even this one is like, okay, you have to sink to the lowest common denominator. But right now, Ilana Garcia is sitting in the state Senate, seat number 37, and she should not be sitting there because Frank Artiles, who is a former state senator, basically bribed a guy with the same last name, Rodriguez, to run as it was an independent.
That's like that movie with it was Eddie Murphy, and they ran him and they used the name Thomas Jefferson, and they just didn't show his picture and they didn't know he was black, and they just ran that name. Oh my God, that's like a movie.
So confusing the hell out of the voters. Is
that what this is about?
That is what that's about.
God.
And so
he looks really douchey.
Oh, listen.
Like Frank, he really looks
Frank
douchey.
Looks like a slimy guy. There's no question about it. And so this is a race that the other Rodriguez got 6,000 votes. And what was the margin of victory for Ilana Garcia? 32 votes. 32. 3-2. If that's not a scandal, I don't know what is. So as it turns out, Frank Artiles has now been arrested for election fraud. And this is real. And this is what election interference really looks like.
Oh, that guy. Look at him.
So what we need to figure out, and we'll discuss this with Richard, what can we do to at least, they're not going to just give JJR the seat back, but we have to have a special election because this is unacceptable. This is real cheating. And the fact that the guy's been arrested for it, this cannot sit idly by. They're going to try to sweep it under the rug.
Where is this?
Miami.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, like, where? Like, I'm trying to picture the district.
I think it covers Frederica, and I think part of Jimenez's district.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. So, something has definitely got to be done here.
Center Miami.
But something must be done.
That's really not cool.
And so we can address, obviously, Miami. I think we were going to essentially talk about. We
don't have to. We have our guests.
We say that it's focused on Florida. I just want to say that because Florida, because there is nowhere else in the country that we would have to go into a state of emergency because there are too many spring breakers without masks crowding in a bunch of small areas. And of course, Florida just can't seem to get out of its own way. So while everyone in the other parts of the country are going to be way past the COVID pandemic in the next handful of months, I think we'll be sitting on this till at least the holidays.
Thought we have to have hashtag because Florida.
Hashtag because Florida. So with that said, we are pleased to welcome into the studio.
All right, but we're going into the Uplifting Labor.
Yes.
Where we like to have on Mondays a labor segment. So this is a treat because Richard, and how do we say that? Quincoces?
Quincoces. And let's see if we're right, because he'll let us know if we botched it or if we said it
you know
right.
what? I'm a gringo. Soy gringo, lo siento. That's what I say. Well, but anyway, so Richard is the vice president of South Florida AFL-CIO. So we are going to talk labor issues. We'll probably talk PRO Act and, just, general stuff.
Very important stuff that we want to discuss. And we also want to talk about, he is also the president of I believe the Trade Workers Union.
Okay.
And that is a chapter in Miami as well.
Cool.
So a lot of great things to talk about. Without further ado, let's bring them in.
How are you all?
Good evening.
It's Richard Quincoces.
Quincoces. That's easier, actually. That's easier. Oh, it's easier than I thought. Okay.
I think the perfect icebreaker.
Lo siento.
Yeah, the perfect icebreaker, of course. Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's the thing. I'm very apologetic. Like I'm always, and that's really what matters. I mean,
Quincoces. You just say it a couple of times.
No, now I got it.
Don't feel bad. In the construction industry, when I was coming up, they called me Richard Q, because they couldn't say it, so they just called me Q. So it's all good.
Yes. Well, you know what? It never hurts to learn about other cultures and other pronunciations, but we're Americans.
And we're very poorly educated.
Yeah. And it's Florida.
And because Florida, no, that's my excuse. I grew up here. I don't know what you're.
No, I'm another transplant like everybody else from the Northeast. And, here I am. But I think the perfect icebreaker is to first and foremost talk about our amazing mutual friend, effing Fred Frost.
Effing Fred Frost.
And
amazing guy.
What can you say? I mean,
we can't say the F word. Well, we're trying. We got monetized, so we're trying to get in trouble. We're trying to not say the curse words, but I normally would have said it. But yeah, effing Fred Frost.
And so many amazing stories, just learning about his involvement in obviously with CWA and just being a real champion of labor. And it really broke our hearts when, Jen was running for Congress and, just when he would talk about how much it hurts him that we don't have a sustainable labor movement in this country right now, and how much he would love to see it again. And
we need to bring it back.
We do. And I think that the perfect place to start, Richard, is to really talk about, and they did the Poor People's Campaign, a huge event today in Bessemer, Alabama. If you could talk about the significance, because what Jen and I always talk about is that the labor movement in this country essentially died back in the summer of '81 when Reagan fired the air traffic controllers and not a single union walked out on the job the next day, which is what needed to happen. But I do think if we are able to successfully, if the Amazon workers are successfully able to form a union against the most powerful man on earth right now, Jeff Bezos, I do think it's going to have the boomerang effect. I think it will start something in the labor movement in this country. What are your thoughts on that?
No, for sure, definitely. Getting that bargaining unit in any bargaining unit is a growth to labor, right? And that's a huge victory for labor. Now we're at our polls show that labor is up in the 60s. Of favorability at this time. It hasn't been like that since about 40 years. I mean, it hasn't been like that for a long time. So yes, it's about time that Amazon take care of their employees right and correctly. And if they're going to fight for collective bargaining, of course. And this is going to be huge. And this is going to be huge across the nation. The labor movement has been moving aggressively, and we've been gaining strength and market ability and strength around the country. And it's because teachers are stepping out, are walking out of the classrooms. Construction workers are walking out of their job sites. People are voicing their voices, and this is one example of that. And I'm very happy, and I hope them victory. And they have to fight, because they're going to come after them, and they're going to badmouth the union, and they're going to say that that that's what they do in the back rooms, and they just come back and say negative things to try to brainwash them and scare them and intimidate them. So they can't. They have to be encouraged and go forward and fight for what their victory is going to be.
There is no question that if people think that they're bringing the heat right now for them not to form the union. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like if they do pull it off. Then the propaganda, I think, is going to be dialed up to an 11, and they're basically going to put the warning out to every worker, whether it's at Amazon, whether it's at Walmart, whether it's at Target, and basically tell them, if you even think about forming a union, we will axe you all. But I just kind of get the feeling that if it happens, they're just going to be like, all right, we'll call your bluff. We'll see what you're willing to do.
I think that it's just moving now, and it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just how slow is it going to be? How many people have to suffer? But I think we're moving in a populist direction because we're starting to outnumber the 1%. And that's what's going to happen in any sort of failing empire when the haves take the have-nots for granted long enough and the have-nots build up over time.
I think it's just
people are done. They're over it.
They've been squeezed too tight.
Yeah.
And then eventually they're like, well, you know what? It can't get any worse. So I guess I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And you can threaten me all you want, but it's not going to matter. And I really think it is going to get ugly, but I do think if they pull this off, it's going to have long-term sustainability for the labor movement.
We should talk PROACT.
Yeah, there's no question. I do think that if there's one thing that we need to discuss that is of immense importance, Florida's a right to work state.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So if you want to address, what that means and how difficult that is for the AFL-CIO, and then essentially what the PRO-Act would mean to supersede the Florida right to work laws.
Yeah, please. I mean, we kind of like to provide education, and not everybody even knows what right to work is. Like, so it's nice to reiterate. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. So for folks that don't know what right to work means right to work for less, right to work for worse conditions, unsafe conditions, no
contract. You're on your own. You're a small fish in the ocean swimming by yourself. And that's what they want. They don't want you to be together in solidarity as a big fish, little fish all together as one, right? Trying to get that big shark. So that's right to work in a nutshell, right? What the PRO-Act would do, the PRO-Act would be humongously a big victory for the labor movement. Yeah. It's something that hasn't been seen since the days of Roosevelt, right? This is going to be huge. It's going to, at the way it looks now, the way it's written now, it will cut right to work completely away. And that's a huge victory. It's going to allow us as organizers to be able to organize bargaining units and to be a fair advantage for us to be able to do it. Now, if we organize a bargaining unit, either they'll change their names, they'll switch over to somebody else's name, and they'll do shady stuff, and then we'll be stuck in courts for years as unions. So this is what the PRO-Act is going to do. It's going to make organizing and right to work to go away and organizing to be strong.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, really, essentially, right to work allows people to not be involved in the union, and it takes funds away from the union, and it weakens the movement. I mean, that's ultimately what happens, and we know that because it's been empirically shown that right to work states have horrible working, like they have like the worst working conditions and the worst labor outcomes.
Richard, if you can share with the audience, and this is a lot of people are going to see this, and we're going to try to move it as effectively as we can. Can you talk about some of the propaganda that some of the big corporations do, especially in Florida, to basically try to deter their employees from, ever having any ability to do collective bargaining? As our friend Jason Smith, head of the firefighters union here in Broward County, likes to say, it's not collective bargaining, it's collective begging.
Well, sometimes it feels like that, with so many battles that we, especially in South Florida and in the South, that, right now I'm in Tennessee, working in a campaign down here right now. And it's cynical because they'll take workers
behind the scenes, and they'll start safety meetings, and they'll tell them, if you don't vote for the union and you just vote against the union, your job is going to be better. We're going to give you that increase that you've been looking for. We're going to help you out. But at the end of the day, when they don't sign it, they fire them all. And they have the right, whoever signed the card, they get rid of them. So it is a sad situation because it's an unfair advantage that they have against us, and that's the 1% that you were talking about that has that advantage because they have the big dollars, right? And labor has money, but hey, our money is our members' money, and we have to defend our members' money, right? And it's hard to go against that big amount of money that goes against us sometimes.
Yeah.
One of the things that we are huge advocates for, that unfortunately our representative is not, is a Medicare for all single payer healthcare system. Can you talk about the amount of funding and time and effort goes into negotiating a union contract and negotiating a healthcare, for your employees, and what it would mean to not have to do that if we had a single payer system where, in this case, the TWU or the CWA or the SCIU would not be responsible for their employees' healthcare and not having to negotiate that into the contract every year.
It was just, they didn't have to, healthcare was off the table.
Well, of course, we as labor unions and as members of the labor movement, we negotiate our health care within our contract. And of course, universal health care will be a huge plus. As a community member of South Florida, healthcare it's everybody's. Everybody should have it. It's not a privilege to have. And labor is not in the business. We're not in the business of the healthcare business. We're in the business of working people, of situating and fixing working situations and at the workplace and salaries, and of course that will be a huge burden that could be removed from our shoulders, right? But right now, as it stands, our healthcare plans are strong because we pay into them and we make our contractors and our signatories get involved in them. So of course we'll defend them, but like I said again, universal health care is a privilege for everybody to have. It shouldn't be the few.
Yeah.
In the interim, can you talk about what it would mean? Obviously, Desantis, look, he's very popular, obviously, on the right and to some degree is with the independent vote. But if we had, let's say a strong populist candidate on the Democratic side, what it would mean at the bare minimum for something like Medicaid expansion, and would that help with any type of union contract negotiating if the healthcare costs in Florida were to go down?
Well, anything in Tallahassee would be a plus right now. A change of Desantis is a plus. He's responsible for the deaths of so many with his negligence with the COVID-19 crisis, to say the least. The unemployment crisis that we have going on right now, that people are still having issues with unemployment at this time. So yes, it would be a huge plus to have any change in Tallahassee. Right now, it's ruled by the Republicans, and they are ruling it in a strong labor against labor way, right? They're going right now against the teachers. They're trying to cut funding to public schools. What more? They were going after pensions for public sector workers. What more can we do? They're preemptions every year, and then I think preemption might even be hit on us. And that's why the PRO Act is so important, because those are the things that we can try to avoid. They're trying to do poll taxes, right? They're trying to make sure that voters do not get their right to vote. So yes, to make it short, of course, it will make life easier for us to collectively bargain, and it will be easier for normal citizens to get something out of their state.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in our state, I tell everybody, look, I come from New Jersey, and while I've never been a member of the GOP, I've been an independent, and obviously I'm a Democrat in the state of Florida. The Florida GOP is really bad. Like, really bad.
It's ruthless.
And needless to say, you being obviously in Dade County, this scandal with Frank Artillis and what he did to get JJR out of his seat, I don't think it's being talked about enough in just how big of a scandal it really should be. With all due respect, Ileana Garcia she's an illegitimate representative as far as I'm concerned. And at the bare minimum, we have to figure out how we can force a special election. I don't know, because as you know, the Democratic Party infrastructure in Florida is very weak, but we really have to figure out how to make something happen here, because it's an example of, if this goes unpunished, you're basically telling the Florida GOP that they can be in power forever, that there is nothing that can stop them from losing their power to basically crush labor, among other things, in this state. If you can talk, knowing probably even more than we do about this whole situation, please share.
Look, it's going to take grassroots, right? It's going to take a huge grassroots move, and if folks leaders from the grassroots are hearing, you have to go out like we did in the elections. We have to take the streets, caravans, petitions. You have to make our voices known. If the press does not want to talk about it, make sure they're talking about it by focusing them on you. And it's about now pushing the fact that, yes, this was pure crap that just happened right now. And Artiles is, since he was pretty much thrown out of the state Senate for being a bigot, that's keep it real. And now he is now committing fraud on elections. Hey, it's about people taking a stance.
Yeah, well, but I mean, like, I wish we had yellow vests. I say it all the time, and I think that we need a general strike. I think it needs to be spearheaded by labor, and then I think people such as myself who stand with labor, but I'm not part of a union, but would totally come out in support of that. And I think that all of those things need to coalesce. But yeah, we need a general strike. This is already getting ridiculous.
Well, yeah. And like I said, it takes everybody to take a step forward, right? Everybody has to put their part in it, and that's including labor. We all have to put our part in it. I agree that the grassroots and folks, everybody has to make their voices known here that this is not going to be tolerated.
I think one of the things that will change, and obviously we would love for it to change, but I do think that the future of the grassroots movement is through labor, and it is particularly through labor unions.
It is.
And I would say that the biggest roadblock that Jen ran into, that it has a lot of similarities to what Bernie Sanders had to deal with when he ran, especially in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. When it comes to being able to get the support of a union, and obviously how important that is to winning elections, it does matter. And so when Jen ran for Congress in 2020, one of the things that ultimately hurt our chances, now obviously it was going to be a long shot. We did pretty well with fundraising, had a pretty solid ground game. COVID happened. So of course that was going to set us back significantly. But the one thing we were not granted, which really hurt, was we were not granted a screening for endorsement. It's one thing not to endorse. It's another thing not to grant a screening by the Broward County AFL-CIO. And this is not a question of the rank and file. This is obviously a question of management. We don't have to name him. We know who it is. I'm curious as to what the process can be going forward where we can improve, because I know that unions have to make decisions, political decisions. You're not just going to endorse anybody. I mean, obviously, we would love to have more labor-friendly representatives and not corporate-friendly representatives, which is how, unfortunately, a lot of the Democratic representatives are today. But if we are going to change that dynamic, what are some of the things that we can do to really build up that support where ultimately non-corporate candidates can get big union endorsements that could be the difference in winning these very important elections?
Yeah.
So I can just speak for South Florida as Central Labor Council. as the chair of the COPE and that runs all the screenings in South Florida, every single candidate is screened by our committee. We give everybody a fair shot. I don't know the particulars on that,
but all I can say is that we let the general body vote on whoever they want. I'm not telling or dictating to anybody who I think or should win. I'll give my opinion on who I like or don't like, but it is not my job or my position to do that. So I can just speak for the Central Labor Council in South Florida, and I can say that that's the way we do it.
Yeah, I don't think Broward had a vote. We didn't have a screening. We didn't have anything. So there was they didn't know. We had a lot of meetings with a lot of locals, and basically I'm losing my mind. The iron workers endorsed us, despite the fact that the AFL-CIO wouldn't. And we had several other unions that said they wish they could, but they can't, even though they know that I would be in the better interest of their members.
Yeah, because I do
that's
think
the problem.
I do, and obviously
there's a disconnect between what is supported by the union and what is in the best interest of rank and file.
And you know that if Fred supports somebody like Jen, he's the genuine article, and he's not going to he ain't going to support anybody who isn't the real deal when it comes to advancing the labor movement. I think what's most important is that if Jen were to run again, we just want to make sure that there is a fair and transparent opportunity to get an endorsement. Doesn't mean she will.
No, it should be like that anyway. But it sounds like they are. Broward, it wasn't offered. There was no vote. They just said, this is what we're doing. And there was nothing to even do about it. So they are doing what they're supposed to be doing down in South Florida.
Yes. And I do think that, as I mentioned, Richard, I think it's, there's a lot of people who run for office that have, big starry eyes and they really want to win. But at the same time, and I'm saying this, as sort of like a learning experience, if you're not viable, you're not going to get endorsed. It's just not going to happen. And this is, you have to make decisions. It's not easy decisions, but viability is a big part. Doesn't mean you're definitely going to win, but if you're not fundraising, if you don't have grassroots support.
No, there needs to be a path to victory. I appreciate that. I just, I think that you should be given an option.
But I do think having that, I think, will play a significant role going forward. And so I'm curious as to what your thoughts are as how you would see labor helping with growing the, more or less this grassroots movement that I think is very much necessary.
How do we coalesce?
And so,
how do we coalesce?
And so one of the big problems that obviously the Democratic Party, because let's face it, this is Florida. I have no problem with people who are independents, want to be part of other parties. Florida is a state where you have to make a choice. That's the way it is. You're either Republican or Democrat.
But it needs to be pro-labor.
Correct. So if the pro-labor side obviously is on the Democratic side, but unfortunately the Democratic Party in the state of Florida basically only has a real infrastructure in about 7 or 8 counties.
Yeah.
How do we, what are your thoughts on how we expand that, even to something as simple as like Monroe County, Collier County, just places where you would think that there should be a more sizable foothold, but there just doesn't seem to be right now.
We need more participation from the party, right? But there again, I'm just going to make an example of myself as a leader, right? During the election, I saw that nobody was doing anything, especially during the 2020 election, especially coming into November and October.
And I was out there in the front lines with the grassroots groups, right? It takes leaders to go up. We have to lead by example. We have to start, all of us, everyone that's a leader has to lead by example, has to be willing to go out there and push for it. Yeah, we have to find a bigger bench. That's another one. We don't have a big bench, especially going down to Monroe County. There's, there is in the candidates that I've screened in the past have not had a path to victory. right? Because they no fundraising whatsoever, no exactly what you were talking about, no ability of grassroots ability whatsoever, and then they're a one-man team or a one-woman team, right? Knocking on doors, and you can't win like that. You have to have a plan, a strategy. So yeah, we need to hold the party accountable. And that's one thing I did during the election. I hold people accountable. I was vivid. People heard me on the phone. I was vivid because I saw the agony of people on the streets.
If you can talk about, today it was, it came out that, and I think this is going to, it's sort of a double-edged sword. Manny Diaz is the head of the Florida Democratic Party, and obviously he's done, what he's had to do to try to bring the party out of debt.
And he sold it to Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, to the people that are coming in. I think it's this, it's really this double-edged sword of, yeah, it's good to get out of debt, but, what type of attachments do you have now? And one of the biggest donors is a longtime Republican donor who's a, corporate healthcare executive. I think that really hurts the party. And what was also brought up is the fact that they really have no small dollar donation base. I mean, that is a scary prospect. And especially with an election coming up, obviously it's an off-year election and the GOP typically does well in off-year elections, and especially with a Democratic president now. But that doesn't mean that we can't be making a concerted effort to start to build that grassroots bench. And I do think some of the ways we can do that is through the Progressive Caucus, some of these other organizations, or even through labor. And so I'm curious as to what your thoughts are in what we can do to really go about that, because right now it does seem like we're fighting two battles at once. And but what else is new for labor, right? That's just kind of how it is.
Well, labor, we're fighting battles from every
single corner. I mean, everybody wants to attack us, but look, I don't know the particulars on that, on the Bloomberg thing, because I'm in Tennessee. But all I can tell you is that I don't believe that. I believe that grassroots money should be mostly involved in campaigns. I am not about big corporations putting money and I just don't. I've never agreed to it. I don't like it. It's not the way. I think the people's money is the people's money, and that's one thing I did like about Bernie Sanders with the $27, and he was raising so much of it. We have to start thinking about those little dollar amounts and how people can start raising money like that, and not rely on those corporations. And that's a personal. That's not a union opinion. That's a personal Richard opinion.
Yeah. I think that it's very telling, though, that our Florida Democratic Party has sponsors like Walmart and Big Sugar are like their two biggest sponsors. So when you look at an organization who's sponsored by Walmart, how is that good for labor? How is that going to be a fighting for labor? Those things sound very contradictory to me.
And a great point, Richard. If you were paying attention to the story out of Nevada, Nevada is a great state for labor, especially the culinary union. Amazing job that they do. They were probably as responsible as anybody for this progressive takeover of the state party in Nevada.
Did you see that the progressives took over the state party and the centrists took their money and left?
And I did. That sounds amazing.
Oh no!
It's like a blueprint.
I'll send you the information. I'll send you the info.
It's a blueprint.
But honestly, for labor, this is the blueprint. It's going to take some time, because the truth is they've been working on this
for 4
since
years.
2016. So this is not something they just did out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But Nevada, I mean, it's a crucial swing state. So this really does present a very unique opportunity. And I mean, Florida,
we can do that here.
It's really, and this is something that I've shared. I've shared this sentiment, Richard, and this is one of the things where, we'll kind of wind down the conversation, but I do think that this is very important because I talk about this a lot. I really believe that Florida is ground zero for an economic populist uprising. This is a right to work state. And this is a state where the majority of employment is in the hospitality and service industry.
The gig workers,
I
all of that.
I can't think of a state where more people wouldn't want to have the right to collectively bargain, to have a living wage.
And the horrible income inequality in this state, too.
Well, there you go. And of course, have health care. I really think if we band together through labor,
we're having a revolution,
that this could really happen in Florida. I really believe that. I just think the infrastructure's weak. And if we build it up, I really think we could compete. I have no doubt we could.
And I just want to add one thing to that. Just look at Georgia. I was working a campaign on the grounds of Georgia during the Senate races that we just won, right? There were races, but that was highly Republican seats, right? And to have the victories that we had over there is to the great work of Stacey Abrams and what she did as coalition work building and community building and with labor involved. That is the formula for Florida victory, right? Community building and union involvement and having that type of grassroots ability to organize.
That's what we're trying to do. I mean, basically what we've been doing for 2 years is building coalitions, connecting things together. It's sort of like, I picture it like a spider web with rings, and every time you make a new connection, it's like stronger because it just puts more people. And there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of people that are fighting for the right things. So when you look at things per issue, and you realize we're all sort of on the same team when it comes to labor, because we're all trying this populist movement, and we need to stop worrying about the left and the right and just be a labor. And that's what, like, to me, that's what is a needed party, is a labor party. We don't have a labor party.
And that's what we're working on.
We're trying to turn this into a labor party.
You're speaking to the wrong person. I'm a labor party. That's Richard speaking, not the labor movement.
Well, no, I know, but that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're trying to do with this series, and just educate people and introduce people who's who, and just really try to build coalition, because that's how this is going to happen.
Yeah. And, you know, you kind of have to go through at least one campaign where you kind of get your butt kicked from the standpoint of, you got to learn how the sausage is made. I mean, really learn how it's made and recognize how you have to cultivate a lot of these relationships, but stay true to your principles. And it's amazing what you can accomplish, because so few people are really willing to take chances. And I think once there's this confidence that, yeah, you know, we really got something here. We really do have champions of the working class. There's really going to be sort of this shift, if you will.
It's happening.
It is happening.
And I resent the fact that you said get ass kicked. I didn't get ass kicked.
No, I'm saying, but from the standpoint of, you need to learn how the politics, as you know, is a dirty business.
It's
and you gotta, it doesn't mean that you can't accomplish big things, but understand that it's a big sandbox. You can keep your integrity, but there are people you're going to have to work with that don't see things the way that you do.
It's unfortunate.
So that's just the par for the course. You know, you have a philosophy that may not be shared by other, union delegates and reps. But I am curious, because while you are the VP of the AFL-CIO of South Florida, I would love to hear more about your particular union. That's one thing we didn't cover, is you are the president of the TWU.
No, you're wrong. I am a regional representative for the Labor's International in North America, LIUNA. The TW Transportation Union would be president of the president of the AFL, South Florida AFL, Jeff Mitchell.
Okay. I guess I mixed that up with Fred. I apologize.
I am a rank and file member that comes out of that union, and now I'm a regional representative for them.
Very cool. And one more time, which union is that?
Labor's International Union of North America. We have over 560,000 members. We're the second largest union in the building trades.
That's amazing. Yeah. And, look, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to get an infrastructure bill in this country, but, Lord knows we need one, and what it would do for, unions like yours and how many new jobs it would create. I mean, it's been a long time coming, but that probably, as much as anything, which I do think can be pushed in a Biden administration versus a Trump administration. But at the federal level, I do think that as much as anything is what we really, really need right now. that could, in addition to what we're building on the grassroots level, to help jumpstart the economy? What are your thoughts on that?
Of course, no, infrastructure is our main target right now. Of course, PROACT is a huge target for us, but infrastructure, labor's had too many broken promises for far too long.
For too many administrations. And we've always been told that we're going to, working people are going to get a piece of the pie, and then the rich get the tax breaks, and the middle class is eliminated. Because right now what we have is pretty much top class, and we're coming down to a poor class. And it's sad, but yes, built in America is what we need to do. We need to start building our roads. We need to start building our highways and our bridges. We need to build it here. We need to build it union. We need to build it union because it's going to only be the only way that workers are going to get a good piece of the pie, and they're going to be defended under a collective bargaining agreement. The days of right to work, we have to put them to the past, and we have to fight against right to work.
Sure.
And it's as much as it's coming across the country, now is the time under this administration that we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, no, I don't, I'm not going to say think, I hope that things are going to be that way. And it's not only going to be another broken promise to labor and working people.
Yeah, let me ask you, we have a new video production intern, and one of the things that we had talked about working on was a project where this is part of our labor series, but I love the idea of being able to do like video in the field and get pictures in the field and really be able to project like what we're trying to protect and the people and stuff like that. I mean, we're not documentary filmmakers by any stretch, but I love the idea of being able to do that. And is that something that you think we might be able to do?
For sure. When I'm back in Florida, we can touch base and we can discuss that. And
That would be great.
I don't see, and
Even within our own union, I don't see any issues with that at all.
Okay, because when we went and met with the iron workers, I was blown away by just their training setup and just how they just all of it. Like, it was just really cool. And I never would have seen that. I never would have known that. And I think that that kind of vibe is something that I think people need to see. It needs to be out there. Most people would never know, and especially in Florida, where labor is kind of like squashed. So we're just trying to get it out there.
Yeah, and in Broward County, where you're at, Broward County not only has iron workers, we have the painters training center. We have our training center, the laborers training centers up there too.
Yeah, see, I want to see that.
Great. By the way, Richard, JC Garcia, great guy. Big fan of him. And
okay, so I can come see your training place?
Well, sure, for sure.
Okay, see, that's what I want to see. That's cool.
Yeah,
last question. What does generational change mean to you?
Generational change means to me is it starts now with us right now too. I have little ones. I have a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm wanting to motivate and inspire people to move forward and to do more than I'm doing. Right?
We need to inspire our younger folks about labor and teach them what labor is and what the meanings like right to work and all these meanings that we talked here, what PROACT are, because too much fake news is going out and it's saying that the wrong messaging, and we need to correct that. And to me, is a better future for my kids, for your kids, for all kids coming up. That I grew up, my parents were in unions, and I saw that middle class. I saw that piece of the pie. Now we need to fight for that piece of the pie back to go up for other generations to go. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Very much appreciated.
Very much.
You're a fantastic guest, and we definitely look forward. We're doing a labor series.
Yeah, no, and I'd love to get in the field. Like we now have a video production intern. She gets college credit. It's really exciting, and so I want her to really work on a good project.
For sure.
We'll talk.
Okay, thank you.
Rest assured, you definitely have some allies here, and we're going to do everything we can to help build the labor movement here in Florida, and we definitely look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a great evening. Well, needless to say, he was great. But what would you expect? He's a friend of Fred, and we wouldn't
We
think
love
anything
Fred.
else. And so labor is, look, it's been taking its lumps for over 40 years now.
We still haven't
And-
really addressed having the bootlicker, the guy who's trying to take the firefighter pensions away, which is something that I think is something we kind of
That'll
need
be
to harp
Friday.
on.
So then that needs to be Thursday night.
And then you'll come up with something else then.
No, I promise.
you
I
work.
promise.
But I really think they're in there, all their committees and everything now. And I think this is when people need to be calling this guy's office.
But Richard brought up a great point. It's that, there's just no infrastructure. And you say it a lot too. There's just no real infrastructure.
No.
And if you built the infrastructure, the message moves. It's like you need a contact in every county.
Well,
even if it isn't that big of an infrastructure, but at least it starts and then the conversation flows and it becomes bigger and bigger.
that's what we're doing.
That's correct. And even, I think what they ultimately end up doing in some other areas, like, and I think they do this up in the Panhandle, they do like tri-county groups of like the Progressive Caucus. They don't just do like one county. Because some counties, they don't have a big population, and obviously it's very, very red. Floribama.
I just think that this has to be done in conjunction with labor.
I
Like
agree.
it can't,
I agree.
otherwise there's not enough people.
No.
That's just the thing. It's
But
not.
but it has to be nonpartisan.
That's
It
the problem.
really
And
is
this
big.
is where the Democrats can't get out of their own way.
That's correct. And that is a very big problem, because if you just listen, I think people understand that you have to pick a side, but I also think that there is a way to show that doing it with the Florida GOP is not the answer.
Right.
Because they are led at the top by Ron DeSantis, and even worse so in the Senate by Rick Scott. They are as anti-worker, especially Rick Scott, as anti-worker as it gets.
No, I know.
I do think Rubio can be pushed in certain ways, but Rick Scott, very much like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I wouldn't waste my breath. And I don't normally say that.
No,
You
it's a
usually
waste.
would think that let's just make it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
So really that's what I feel like that I always talk about how there's bridges, certain people are bridges between certain populations and other populations. And it's like this, you just want to connect as many groups of people. And I feel like it's really incumbent upon us to merge the progressive movement with the labor movement infinitely better than it has been done. And that's sort of like, I think we've just been organically doing that, but I think that it seems clearer that that's the way we got to go.
No, we definitely are. For those of you watching, by the way, please check out our amazing live stream from Saturday.
I think we should do a restream on Friday.
Okay.
And we could advertise. I think why not? We don't do anything else on Friday. What does it matter if we do that?
No, I think it's fine. So we did a free Assange telethon. It got a lot of interest. And what I would like to do when Jen is ready is I think we need to naturally take it to the next step and do another one.
But I don't want to give up a topic yet. I don't want to speculate yet, because I have some ideas.
I think it's two topics.
I know you do, but you want me to do it. So I think I should have a say.
Well, do you think the two that I've suggested are
it's good, but right now I want to talk about this live stream.
Okay.
You're too far ahead of us.
One of the things that we really take for granted is our civil liberties and how eroded they are becoming. And so if you think that you can play hyper-partisan politics, which, let's face it, the whole Julian Assange story is hyper-partisan politics.
He angered the Hillary Clinton beast.
He pissed off one of the most powerful and most vindictive people in politics.
Yeah.
So when you do that, it's not going to end well.
You get Arkansided. You can get Arkansided.
Well, let's not go. You're not allowed to go conspiratorial.
I can do whatever I want. But okay. The point is we did a telethon for Julian Assange.
And thank you, if you see this, Kim Iverson, for having Jen on, because I have no doubt that also helped with the viewership.
For sure.
Kim is very libertarian, even though she leans left.
She's kind of she's a libertarian, but she's social on economic issues.
Yeah.
So she's like me. I've always said that. I'm kind of like a libertarian socialist. That's kind of where I fall.
You said the word socialist.
I don't care.
Bing!
Duh, whatever. But
you're not allowed to say socialist. That's
whatever.
Evil word.
But so we had a telethon for Julian Assange, but I want to say the highlight for me so far was that Stella Morris reached out.
She did.
And was very thankful and very appreciative. And that really speaks to me. So that is, and if anybody doesn't know, that's Julian's significant other and the mother of his children. And so the fact that she was pleased that what we did, I just, that's kind of a feel-good thing for me.
One day, and that day may never come, where he may come and do you a favor and service.
I don't need anything from anybody. And the truth is it's, you know, as much as, yeah, I care about Julian Assange, I would care about anybody in that position. So it's not personal. I don't know him. I don't need to be friends. I don't know if I'd like him or not. It doesn't matter. So that's the thing. But I am very thankful that his significant other reached out and was appreciative. That really meant a lot to me.
We definitely recommend that you check out, and we are going to be doing a swath of different videos. So obviously you've got the full live stream, which is over 5.5 hours. I know it's a lot.
Pick segments, and you know, there's different ones, different panels each hour.
We're gonna break it down. We're gonna do it 2 different ways. So you've got the full live stream. Then we're gonna break it down to each hour segment. So there were 5 different segments. There was an intro and an outro. And then there's going to be little clips of each hour panel.
Right.
And
that are like key topics, like specific, right. Just, yeah, because that's what people really, and that's really what people want to see.
So whatever,
most people,
whatever floats your boat, whatever cleanses the palate best.
I mean,
you'll have every option that you'll be looking for. We've already got,
you know, like if my mom's watching, we'll just put it on and let it run. You know what I'm saying? Like, just put it on and let it run, sissy.
And always remember to like, comment, and share. That's very helpful for the channel. We've got a lot going on. We really do. But, you know, obviously we've got a serious issue here locally that we're
we're not going back there right now. I was going to a happy place for a little while.
We have to deal with it, though.
We will. We're taking 2 days to not deal with it. And then we're going to deal with it.
We will. And we'll address it on Thursday. We'll have more to say.
But because I'd like to end on something happy. So the happy note is that my friend Aaron Hollis, who has become very, very dear to me, but he has an interest in learning beekeeping and getting interested in like humane bee removal business, and anybody who knows me knows I love my pollinators. Yes. So the fact that a good friend of mine,
if the bees go, we go.
Yeah, no. So the fact that a good friend of mine is interested in like learning about the bees, like it's like the merging of like it's Jen's happy place. So GenCorp was very happy to donate him his bee suit and his bee gloves, and so that he can get started on his hives, because you have to have a suit, it has to be registered. Like there's a whole process with this, but he has a mentor, he has a place to learn this, and he needed a suit. And so GenCorp donated a suit, and I'm very excited. And watching him open it was like the highlight of like so far the year, I gotta say. You know, I mean, we're only in March, but it was pretty cool.
We have to accept the fact that our attempt to change the way things are done is in this part of the country is going to be a lot more difficult than it is in most places. It just is. A lot of people here are of a certain age, of a certain persuasion, and frankly, a certain lifestyle that really isn't interested in digging their heels in and getting stuff done. And when that happens, it's very hard. You know, I'm impressed, I must say, on a personal level, I am actually impressed with how many people have taken an interest in Jen and what we're trying to do here.
I'm so fascinating.
Yeah, so fascinating.
And the most boring person. Don't do it.
Yeah, really.
I'm really kind of like, you know.
I just think that,
it's
better than what we could have expected, but we need better infrastructure and more sustainability, and that's key. And if you have that, it can go very, very far, because the GOP is really good at that. And that's part of the reason why they always win, is because their infrastructure is great. It is.
We're working on it, but it's more important to me that we build our community infrastructure than it is any sort of political infrastructure. And so that's the priority. Why do you give that? Why do you give it airtime?
Because it's funny. It's, you know, you gotta laugh. You gotta just roll with the punches.
Oh, we were talking about labor issues, Jimmy. You know, we were talking about what we can do to help build the labor movement, because it's ultimately, I think, the core of us being able to have progress is going to be the labor movement coalescing with the progressive side of things, and that's what we need to be the party.
I think there's no question that there are going to be labor leaders who will take more of an interest in you, whether you run or not. That's important, because you really did, you know, look, you knew, you're from here, you knew people, but you weren't in the political circles.
And it doesn't matter in that particular case, you know what it is what it is. Like that's the problem with that. So.
Well, for those of you who need a refresher, the biggest impediment to progress and the biggest protector of Debbie Wasserman Schultz
In Broward County
is the head of the AFL-CIO, Dan Reynolds.
He is an impediment to progress. When you want to know why we can't have nice things, it's because he's a big part of that problem.
And above every other reason, when Tim Canova ran for Congress in 2016, he was screened by the AFL-CIO.
Yeah.
Dan Reynolds refused to screen Jen.
He didn't even return my calls.
And
I called him a couple times. He wouldn't even talk to us.
And the reason that I do believe that he did not have Jen screened is because he was afraid of the reaction that the rank and file workers would have to her.
It makes sense, but you know, we met with a lot of locals and we got along great with everybody because the reality is I am infinitely better for them than anything she could ever be. And that's just a fact based on her voting record. It's not personal.
As a friendly reminder, and we're not here to talk about Wasserman Schultz, but never forget, she was one of, I think, only 5 or 6 Democrats that voted to fast track the TPP. That will never go away, and it should never be forgotten. I have
to give the quote, though, that we got when we met with Fred, and what was his name?
Michael, I forgot his last name.
Okay, so we had a meeting with the union guys and
the CWA.
Yeah, with the CWA.
They were actually the biggest union. They didn't endorse Jen.
But they didn't endorse her either.
They did endorse her, and I'm sure that pissed her off something.
Yeah, it did. So that was one of the clampdowns onto every other union was after that. Like anyway, that really did piss her off, which pleases me. But they said that they were at a lunch with her once. They're at a lunch. She's at a lunch with union people. And she says, I don't know what your guys' problem is with trade deals.
And that's
like that. Like, and she legitimately, I don't know why you have a problem with trade deals. And this is who they endorse.
And again, this gets back to a bigger problem. You would say, well, how is Debbie really still in charge? The truth is, Florida's Democratic Party only really has a foothold in about 7 or 8 counties.
Extremely weak.
And Broward County
is
accounts for the biggest portion of the Democratic vote in the state.
And Dan Reynolds is with Debbie.
Correct.
He's with her. It doesn't matter how bad she is for the rank and file. He does not care. And that's who they're endorsing. And it makes a difference.
It does. And they've been comrades, if you will, allies for, the better part of 25 years.
Who knows what their relationship is, but he definitely works at her behest. Like, that is what it is.
Yeah.
So if people want to know why there's an impediment to progress, if you have connections in unions, if you are in a local, if you have, our job is to get as much information out to rank and file and basically infiltrate as much as we can so that people know they don't have to follow their palm card.
I just had an epiphany.
Oh, all right. I got to get ready for this.
If Jen ends up running again.
Oh my God. That's the 3rd time you've said that this show. I know, but even that.
If Jen
stressing me out.
ends up running again, we will have such a robust network of people that could be flooding the Broward AFL-CIO phone lines, offices, emails.
But it's better when it's people that are in there.
Yes.
So we're building a coalition of labor. But here's the thing. We're not building what we're building for me to run and to get a job.
No.
This is about really building up a progressive movement in South Florida and really starting to change things for the people that live here. That's what this is. This has nothing, stop saying about me running, because the reality is, even if I said now I'm never running again, it's still important to build this coalition.
Oh, I agree. And that doesn't change anything.
Right. So to connect labor and the progressive side of the Democratic Party to sort of take over and try to make some sort of difference for the people, that's what we're doing. And the only way to do that is to get rid of impediments of progress. And Dan is an impediment to progress. So we need to work around that.
And eventually we become the ones that dictate where things need to go and where they will go. And on that note, an hour and a half, right on the number.
See, he does my peace out.
Good night, guys. Thanks for tuning in.